Welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast with your hosts Bill Algie, Dennis Talbot, and Alan Tate. We are three guys who have one thing in common, a love of rock and roll. Our goal is to talk about all things rock. We hope you find this show intriguing, funny, and occasionally highly opinionated. Enjoy!
Hey guys, this is Jeff Pilson, and you're listening to the Ages of Rock podcast, which kicks butt.
Go.
Hey, welcome to the Ages of Rock podcast. This is episode 138. Is that right?
That is
Did I
correct.
get it right now? There you go. All right, so today we're going to have another guest on. We've actually been doing this the last two episodes. We're having not up and comers, but people who have new albums out that are not mainstream. They are people who are looking to be mainstream, and that's what I kind of like to start doing here more often. But anyway, this guy's Dee Allen, and he's from the band Tall Dark Stranger. He'll be on here in a little bit. They're from out of Nashville. We'll get into that here later. So anyway, what's going on, guys? What we got going on? Bill, any concerts? I know you're the concert dude.
Yes, Thursday night going to see Mercy Me. So that'll be the opposite of Ozzy.
Well, Mercy Me, I'm taking it that is a religious or
It
contemporary.
is, yeah.
Religion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's it was Ozzy last Sunday,
Right.
and then a week from yesterday, and then Mercy Me coming up here on Thursday night, which is cool. I've seen them. Oh boy, I don't know, 5-6 times, something like that. Great, it's going to be cool, and I'm really excited about going. So
Where are they at?
It's going to be Conseco, and I think it's sold
Really?
out or close to sold out. That movie really propelled them a lot. So
What movie are you talking about? I don't even know.
I can only imagine. It was a movie that came out. It came out last winter.
What? Who's with them? Do you know? Is it another?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Some other people that will be okay.
that play music.
I wanted to see them. So it doesn't make sense. Some other people.
Cool.
But there's a bunch of it. There's like 8 of us going, so that'll be cool. That'll be cool. Let's see. I picked up some vinyl this week. I went to Louisville, picked Madison up, brought her back.
Right.
Stopped on, went down the Bardstown Road record store tour.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up the Patti Smythe solo album.
Cool.
First one has Never Enough on it, and I picked up 38 Special Tour de Force.
Right. Cool.
Unopened.
Wow.
Still in the shrink wrap, unopened for $4.
Yeah. There you go.
Good deal. So picked those up. So yeah, that's
Just
think
2
about it.
albums on your whole trip.
yeah, there was a couple other ones, but I don't know. I don't have a list going right now, so
Yeah. I haven't been for a while. I gotta go. I keep threatening to go, and then
I did. I ordered for the first time ever online through Discogs. I ordered a Dokken Brick in the Chains album.
Really?
And I got
I'm sure.
yes, and I got it, and it's in great shape, and it was about what I've seen it out around, but in much better shape than what I've seen it. So
Really?
and that kind of came from our buddy, the guy that was beside us over in or at the Rock and Pod Expo.
Yeah. From was it J&T?
JTB Record
Yeah.
Room.
There you go.
He said
And
if I ever see it online, just grab it because it's hard to find, and he'll get one, and then it's not in very good shape, and they just don't stay around even if you have a bad one. So I saw it popped up on my thing, and I'm like, yep, I'm
You
snagging.
mentioned too to get the European version too.
Yeah, I did. This isn't the European version, but
Okay. I don't know what the difference is.
well, he said to buy them from Europe because usually they keep them. They're in better shape when they come from over there.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know if he was talking about getting one that was actually pressed in Europe or.
No, not really.
Okay.
He just said that just they're just in better shape over there.
Gotcha.
I think that's all. I think that's it.
Huh.
That's all I've done this week. So.
Man, you've been boring.
Oh. Well, the other thing is, so, our buddy Mitch LaFon posts every day, like this day in music thing, which I don't know where he comes up with this crap. He just gets stuff from everywhere, which is kind of cool. But he posted the other day about a Foreigner album called "Can't Slow Down" from 2009, I think it was.
I saw that.
And I downloaded that. I've been listening to that. I listened to that a little bit today. It's really good. Yeah. I dig it.
It's actually with Pilsen and the new singer,
Kelly
right?
Hansen, and yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you.
I mean, it's definitely got the keyboard, pretty heavy keyboard stuff,
Right.
but it's pretty good foreigner stuff. So if you like them,
you're blurry, go in and out.
yeah. Ooh,
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Anyway, that's it. That's about it for me.
Anything?
But the only thing that I've got is this past Friday, a documentary called Bad Reputation came out about Joan Jett. So get on the Google and find the information and check that out. I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Is it on Netflix?
I don't know if it's on Netflix. I just heard about it today. So
I heard about it about 3 weeks ago.
Well, actually, I heard about it a couple of days ago, but it slipped my mind. And then I was on my way home from work today, and they played the song "Bad Reputation," and then talked about it a little bit. So I will be getting on the Google later on to figure out where I can preview that. Or
you want us to believe there was a? You want us to believe that there was a Joan Jett reference on the radio that you forgot about?
Occasionally it happens. I had kind of a wonky.
He had a sexual fantasy going on.
I'm like, what? I don't believe that at all.
Well, I had a really weird weekend. I had a sound event that I did in downtown Evansville, which was a really, really good event. But when I went to put my trailer onto my van, the lock that keeps the trailer hitch from getting opened up or whatever was completely froze up. So I had to scramble and unload my trailer into the back of my van and into my wife's car and get down to Evansville. So, by the time I got all of that done, I wasn't thinking about anything fun related.
No, it wasn't froze like temperature wise because it was.
I mean it was seized. It was seized up, and it really pissed me off because the lock is like 6 weeks old.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that's a fairly new lock. You showed it to me is that one you showed me in Nashville?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not that old.
Seized up tight.
I'd be mad.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get on the Amazon and give them a bad review.
There you go.
Other than that, I really don't have anything.
Nothing. All right. Well, I got tickets to see Amos Lee again with my wife. This will be the 6th time I've seen Amos Lee.
Hey, Dennis, can I ask you a question?
I had to ask Bill his name before I got started on this.
But I have a question.
Yes.
Name one Amos Lee song, Dennis.
There is a song, I think it's called Sweet Pea. But other than that, the only thing I can remember and actually think about that I liked about his show was when we saw them we went to Louisville and saw them in an outdoor situation. And he's got a great band. Don't get me wrong. The band he's got is top notch. The music quality is good. I just don't know the songs. And then once I go to an Amos Lee concert, I don't hear another Amos Lee song unless one comes on the radio and we're on a spot or on XM, whatever, Sirius Radio, or I go to another concert. So, but they did play Sarah Smile when we were in Louisville that time, and that's the only one I remember, and it was good. I mean, he does a really good job of it. Plus, when I saw him down in Nashville here this last time when he played with the Philharmonic, that was a good show. We're going to actually Memphis to see this show, and there's some people that Kelly works with that are going also. So it's going to be kind of a week. It's a Saturday night, so we're going to go down probably Friday evening and spend the weekend, and spend some time with some of her friends down there. So it'd be a good night. It would probably go down to Beale Street and then leave Beale Street because it's not what Beale Street used to be. Beale Street's a little different. And
you can go to the King Jerry Lawler's Memphis barbecue place. That's a big deal down there. It's supposed to be pretty good.
I went down to where did we eat? We went down there. We went down to that time we went seeing Foo Fighters. We stayed at the I can't remember I can't remember what the name of the place was at. Imagine that. But we did go to the place where the ducks come out. We went with
Peabody.
The Peabody. We went there, and then we ate in this rib joint. It was supposed to be like the best ribs in Memphis. We went and ate there, and it was good. And then we went to the Gibson plant and toured it. It was kind of cool.
You see the King?
No.
Why not?
The King.
Elvis.
He's dead.
No, he's dead. But we did go to Memphis years ago and saw him with the Graceland. It was actually a good trip. That's another thing we'll talk about sometime. But yeah, Amos Lee, and that's coming up it's actually March. You're buying tickets way
March.
Yeah, it's it's way in advance. So but you got to buy tickets in advance, and he's going to be at some theater down there, so it's not a big deal. But
I can't imagine Amos Lee needing to sell tickets 9 months early.
He's got a big following.
I guess it's not 9 months early. It's 6 months.
Go to one of these concerts, it never fails. There's somebody behind us, some chick that wants to go, yeah, woo, woo, and the whole concert. If it happens again this time, I think
you need to leave Kelly at home.
I'm gonna punch.
If every time you're going, it's the same thing and it's a different place, it might be your wife.
No, it has nothing to do with her. It's just these people are retarded. They go see him. And Amos Lee, what would be his Lears? I don't know what the hell they are. Anyway, but another funny thing we were talking about last week was, or a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I did my final show with Fifth Degree Burn, actually a couple weeks ago. Supposed to do another one night before Thanksgiving, but I think they're going to get the other band, the 2 new guys, ready to go. And I just told them, I said, look, I'm done. If you can get these other guys to go, then so be it. So I think I'm done. But I did get with them. We went through all the books. We're missing one book from when we started keeping track. And then our first gig was actually January 30th, 2011, the day my grandmother passed away. And I kind of know that for a fact. And then, but we figured out there's probably, because we can't give it an exact number, but every year it has about the same amount of things we're guesstimating. But it was about 180 shows is what it ends up being for 7 years. So I know you were asking me before what it was. So that's the closest guesstimate that I can get. I mean, I've got exact numbers for 5 of those 7 years. So, and I'm guesstimating on the other 2. But that's a lot of songs.
We want you to be accurate, so you need to go get the other.
Well, we can't get those. I mean, it can't be done. But if you figure out here real quick, times, that was actually 7,650 songs that we played in those 7 years.
No, wow. That was 45 songs that you played that many times.
We have a repertoire of about 100 and now we got rid of some, but I'd say over the 8 years after getting rid of, we had probably 150 to 160 songs. And then we would pick, X amount every gig, we'd change our set list every gig.
What?
And yes. And it wasn't until this last year that Paul Stanley.
You can't say, what are you talking about?
The last year, what we did was we kind of do a rotation of all the bars in this area. And and we would actually keep in the last year and a half, we kept the same set list. And then we would go through the whole circuit and then we would do this, do it again. But never the same place, the same thing twice. And in those 7 years, we had.
You didn't learn anything at all. You haven't learned anything.
One drummer, one guitar player, one guitar player singer, 3 girl singers, and 3 bass players. In that 7 years. So,
wow,
just some facts. But I am now
fun fact.
I am now retired for a while until I get my hand situation better and work situation better and everything else better.
Is it your left hand or your right hand?
I've got issues in both. I've got numbness in this, in my right hand to hold the pick, and I've got where my finger actually goes into a locked situation where I have to actually physically pull if I do a chord for any, about the 3rd set, I'm hurting, and I'm also to the point where I'm cramping and I can't stop and I have to do stretches and everything else. I think
is your friend.
Well, I'm going to get this one worked. Yeah, my doll. Get some badges sealed too. But I think this hand, if I would get anything done, it would be this hand first because I can deal with numbness and everything. And it's just I can't do anything in the mornings. If I try to practice guitar before noon, after doing a bunch of stretching and moving around, I can't hold a pick. It absolutely, I'll drop a pick within a song or so.
So if you stretch, then you can actually play. I should try that. Maybe if I stretched a little bit.
Yeah.
That would. It's not gonna do it. It's not gonna help me.
It's gonna. But anyway, that's what's going on there. As far as anything else, I haven't.
Oh, hey, we want to congratulate our
yes
guys at Rock and Metal Combat for whipping our ass.
They busted us hard.
We're just going to go with that.
We want to thank everybody who actually took the time and voted, and we appreciate that. We will get that, and I know we should have did that today, but I didn't have time. I got home late, and we were going to do this early. I will get the T-shirt situation. We'll figure out. We got two T-shirts to give away. We will figure that out by next Thursday, and we will. Actually beforehand, because I'll send you for your sizes, and I got a shitload of 1X and 2X. I hope we get some big people. If not, I can get them made. It's not a big deal.
All right, man.
So anyway, other than that, we're going to talk.
So who we got on the show tonight, man?
So we're going to talk to Dee Allen. He is from the Tall Dark Strangers. Kind of different music, but it's rock music. So here we go. All right, so we're returning now, and we're with our guest, Dee Allen from the band Tall Dark Strangers. How you doing tonight, brother?
Doing great. Good to be with you guys.
Awesome. So you were one that sent a email to us and said, "Hey, here's my recording. Check it out, see what you think, and if you like it, would like to be on your show." Well, I listened to it and I loved it. So that's why we had you on. Like I said, it's one of those things where we do all things rock. So it doesn't make we go from headbanging to bluesy to rock, guitar oriented, to classify your music. If you instead of me doing it, why don't you classify your music?
Well, it seems like every few years they change what they call the kind of rock that I do. I suppose I'm most comfortable with pop rock, because I guess rock just can go so many directions that doesn't really tell people much. But I feel like my stuff incorporates enough elements of 70s rock and then a little bit of 80s pop that under that umbrella, you could say pop rock, and that would work. According to most of the blogs and websites that I've been writing for reviews and things, I guess now officially, if it sounds like, guitar rock, they're going to call it classic rock. And I've also learned that indie rock doesn't mean independent rock anymore. That's a specific sound. Like, I suppose that means Arcade Fire. So I guess a lot of people would call what I do classic rock now, but I don't necessarily think as much as there's a lot of 70s and 80s influence in there. I feel like there's some modern beats and touches in there as well. So to me, classic rock would seem kind of limiting. But I guess I'm comfortable with pop rock.
There you go. Well, the album that you told us about was Contra Mundum. Did I get that right?
Right.
Right. That's the one you sent us to listen to. And I tell you what, it goes from one spectrum to the other. I mean, for me, there was, and I talked to you a little bit when we connected the other day just to check your Skype out, and I was talking to you about some things, and I said, the album hit me with a bunch, because I have my guilty pleasures is kind of I call it yacht rock, but it's early 70s kind of easier type stuff. But and my wife and I were both listening to this, and we both, there was at times you could kind of had a little river band type sound to it. Then there was times there was Steely Dan. I could kind of hear that type of music to it. It just hit me today. I was listening to It's Over, and to me that sounds like a Michael McDonald solo type record, something that he would have did on a solo record,
Yeah.
And then you've got, The Right to Be Wrong, which is a guitar, they've got that kind of bluesy. It goes from one spectrum to the other, which I like that, because with one album, you're getting a total different sound from one, from beginning to end. That's what I like about it.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I wish A&R people felt that way. If there's one out there who does, I haven't met him yet.
Right.
I'm sure it's been hammered to death by people who are trying to get their stuff noticed by the industry. But growing up in Nashville, I know that I've heard plenty of times. Well, there's a lot of different ways people can say it, but the overall impression I've gotten is that the business, I think, can be intimidated by not being able to put things into an easily marketed little box. And to me, that's boring. I mean, yeah, the Stones have a sound and Kiss has a sound that we recognize as their normal, regular, average record sounding like. But if you take in the whole scope of their catalogs, what have the Stones not done? Everything from reggae to blues to gospel to country to anything you can think of. And I can see why after all these years, they're still interested in making music together because they haven't put any artificial limitations on themselves. And I could say the same about, well, I heard a long time ago somebody say that what separates the singular artists from the crowd, if we're talking about, well, for examples, you'd have Todd Rundgren, David Bowie, Peter Gabriel, Prince. There's 4 people whose music defies description except to say that it sounds like them. Right. And a Peter Gabriel record when you hear it. Todd Rundgren when you hear him, even though he's done lots of different things. His sound just sounds like him. And that has always hit. Beck is a more recent example. What do you call Beck's music? When you hear it, it's him, but it defies description besides that. And I've always felt like that was the best place to be as an artist because, what inspired you in 2004 might not be what inspires you 10 years after that. And I would hate to feel restricted by my own audience's expectations. So it's always seemed important to me right out of the gate to show people that you like to do more than one thing. I mean, obviously it all falls under rock and to a lesser degree pop for me. But within that, when I get an idea, part of the goal for me is really just to avoid predictability and avoid formulas. Right. And usually when you start writing a song, there are obvious ways you could go. The first thing off the top of your head, you go, yeah, I could go there, or we could go with this rhyme, or maybe this would be the obvious chord to go to. And once I've identified that, I really try hard to go somewhere else. Just out of respect for the audience, because I don't like predictable things in general. Once I've identified a formula, whether that's in music or TV shows or commercials or clothes or whatever it might be, I'm insulted by people who spend the next 5 years jumping on that bandwagon. It's like, okay, that's played out. Let's move on. There are other ideas. I mean, for the rest of eternity, do we need even one more song that has a chorus that consists entirely of the word "oh"? We're still getting them. People are still writing them.
Yeah.
Even though every commercial I hear either has that or it has some sort of breathy, sort of like nursery whispery singing. I'm ready to move on, folks. Yeah. And I would like to give my audience enough, credit to think that maybe they're tired of that stuff too. So yeah, I just don't believe in creating artificial restrictions. There's going to be plenty of reasons that you can't go here or can't go too far in that direction that'll happen naturally, but there's no reason to limit yourself in that way.
Right. That was one thing, and I don't want to say that that you were one thing or another whenever I was mentioning a artist that you sounded like. It doesn't mean that you sound like him. It's just that reminded me of that person.
Oh, sure. No, it's
same way with like a tear that castle down. I was listening to that on the way home again today, and I'm like going, I could just see Sting doing a song like that. You know what I'm saying? Is this kind of there's just so many different, and that's why I liked about, I was telling Bill earlier, I said, this has that likability of the music that I like to listen to, but it's fresh. It's not that same old stale song that I've heard since the 70s. It has that sound, but it's new. And I've actually listened to them enough where now I'm singing them in my head. I'm like going, shit, I actually know the words to that song, So that's why that's what I do. I really this thing has really grown on me, and that's why I was wanting to get you on here. So how many people do you have? I mean, are you a solo artist with a band are you a solid band that travels or that's together? That's what I'm asking.
Well, over the last few months, I've had to spend so much time on finishing the album. There was a lot of mastering and then remixing and then more mastering and then more remixing that took place to get the album finished. So we haven't played out a whole lot over the last year. But I'd say since 2012, I've had mostly a solid lineup. We've used a few different drummers. But yeah, mostly the guys that you see in the pictures are the guys that I've been playing with for the last several years. And the reason we're all playing drums in the album photos is because we haven't had a full-time drummer really.
That's funny.
And at first I thought, should we have a cardboard cutout of a drummer to acknowledge the fact that, there's drums on the album, but yet we don't have a drummer? And I thought, no, let's just reverse that and we'll all just be playing drums in the pictures. But yeah, it's interesting. There's a specific type of person that I have to find to work with, and it's really, you have to go through a lot of people sometimes, or sometimes you just luck out. But it really comes down to their respect for the songs and their respect and love for me, because I basically pay if they feel that their time is being respected. But we've played a lot more showcase type things where you do short sets. They have on long. So in order to pay my guys something, it's not a whole ton of money. And the guys that seem to really work out the best, enjoy playing with Tall Dark Stranger, usually are guys who have road gigs. They have steady gigs, and that has to be country acts. And they've told me that, they look at my project as just a way to contribute a little more of themselves creatively and have something that they can invest in creatively. And so that's valuable to them, and I'm glad to provide that. I keep hoping we'll turn the corner where I can reward them a lot more financially for that dedication. But I've been real lucky to have some great players with me the last few years.
So do you write all the music then that you have on the album then?
On this one, I wrote or co-wrote, I think, 6 of the 10.
6.
Ben Harper, our bass player, wrote the last song, At Best, and that's totally him. And then 3 covers. And you mentioned It's Over. That's actually a Michael Cimbello song.
Really?
And
okay.
Yeah, and I like to choose covers that are good vocal showcases, because when I write, I don't really give any thought to my strong vocal range or any of that. As you know, any of you that write with guitar, you kind of write everything around the riff, and where does the riff sound best? And sometimes that winds up in a spot that's really good for my voice, other times not. I don't really put that much thought into it. But, I do like to have 1 or 2 things on every album that, show my range a little more. And yeah, It's Over was something that a friend of mine had shown me a long time ago and said, man, you need to cover this someday. You could really sing it well. Let's see. Icicle Man is a cover of an independent artist that Ben and I used to see occasionally when he would come to town, a guy named Mike Ill. And that was one of those songs. I never heard it with that arrangement. I did make up the arrangement. We used to hear him do that just solo acoustically, and it had that nice bounce to it.
Right.
And I always heard in my head kind of that Stonesy sort of.
Yeah, it's got kind of a. It's kind of an odd beat, but I like it. It's kind of a
Yeah. So basically, that was a thing of hearing something in a very minimalist presentation and sort of imagining what else would go around it. I believe Mike and his wife have a group called Mad Happy, and they did actually record that sometime after we. but their version is a lot more electro hip hop kind of approach. And I thought, I really want to hear that bounce, that boogie with this song. So that one was fun to do. And I'm trying to think what Shine is a cover, and that's by a band out of Knoxville called the Judy Bats that was big regionally, as far as I understand it, in the 90s, early 2000s. I don't think they're active anymore, but that's just a song I heard on the video that, the stuff that I write tends to be pretty philosophical, I guess, and I thought that was a really positive thing to be able to sing on stage. Shine, 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 just putting positive energy out into the crowd. And I thought, well, since I don't really write something like that, would be a good one to cover, just to have something really positive like that amidst all the other lyrical themes.
Right. Cool.
So going back
Bill?
to some of the artists that we spoke of earlier, are any of those artists your influences? And if not, who are some of your influences?
Let's see. I guess Kiss would be the longest standing big influence. And then the Stones probably after that. I was lucky enough to grow up in a time where the Stones were being played a lot on MTV. So I never really lost track of them or Kiss. I'd say Hysteria by Def Leppard was an enormous influence. That was probably the first CD I ever owned, and just played it over and over again. And then as well as a lot of the more pop acts of the 80s, I always liked Rick Springfield a lot, Hall & Oates, Prince, Howard Jones. And I guess really what I try to do is I heard Chris DeGarmo from Queensryche a long time ago say something like, it's not likely at this stage of the game that anyone's going to invent a new style of music, but you can creatively blend your influences into something new or something innovative, if not new. So that's probably why you can hear a lot of those different flavors. Actually, I was going to say before that, Right to Be Wrong, the blues track that you mentioned,
Right.
That riff sat around for a really long time. I maybe came up with that riff. It could have been 15 years ago now. And I knew, just because the riff itself was really strong, that you could just finish it out as a, traditional 1-4-5 blues sort of chord progression, and it might be just fine. But I thought, well, I think that riff deserves a little more than to just, paste together something generic. And I decided early on that I really wanted the verses to be more like Steely Dan or something more jazzy, just to avoid being predictable. I wanted the verse to go somewhere completely different. And that way, when it comes back to the blues riff, it's really strong. Yeah. And I probably showed that thing, as far as co-writers, I've probably showed that to 5 or 6 people at least, maybe more, over the years. And it just seemed that what I was hearing back was kind of predictable. And so ultimately, the guy that I finished the song with is a guy here in town named Joe Sachs that I only met a couple of years ago, I think. And we had sang together on some shows. And he had a real bluesy kind of feel in his singing, and I thought he might have the right kind of feel to help me finish this song. And I showed him the riff, and I said, I just want the verses to do something totally different, and if it's a little bit jazzy, that's fine. And so he actually showed me the chords that we used in the verse. That's all the verse.
Right.
And it just one of those magical things where, the lyrics that I had just fit right on top of his chords, and we were able to come up with some harmonies real fast, and it was just magic.
That is the one song that I said, it has Steely Dan all over it. I mean, it's just got that, like you said, it starts out one way and then they kind of go someplace else, come back to that again. Like you said, it could have been a great guitar, kind of a bluesy kind of thing, but it doesn't stop there. So I like that.
Yeah. And then I should also mention that Todd Rundgren probably, if I was going to one guy that my stuff sounds like, I'd say Todd Rundgren is the obvious choice.
Right.
And then in recent years, I've really been into King's X pretty heavily.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, Dee, where did the name Tall Dark Stranger come from?
Well, I know that I always thought nicknames were cool, and as a kid or younger guy than I am now, I used to try to sort of adopt nicknames at various times, and they never stuck. But at some point, I remember hearing somebody, David Bowie had that title, the Thin White Duke. And I thought that's better than a nickname. That's a title. And I don't remember specifically what it was that made me think Tall Dark Stranger might be a good sort of representation of myself. But I like all that it entails. It kind of conjures up images of old noir detective type pulp novels and things, and you instantly think of the guy with the high collared jacket and the hat on and everything. And we tried to allude to that a little bit in the album art. I don't know if it comes across that way, but I kind of wanted it to look like the cover of one of those old school pulp novels, old mystery novels. So yeah, I can't say specifically what made me think of that, but that phrase has been around a long time. I think You Will Meet a Tall Dark Stranger, I think that's been the title of songs and movies and things before. And at some point I thought, well, if that title applies to anybody, it's me. So I started using it.
That's awesome. So do you guys play? Once you get out do you go out of Nashville, or since you've been recording, you just stay around the Nashville area? How far do you go out?
Well, we have ventured around. We haven't really broken out of the South before. We've played in, some of the surrounding states. I guess there's a trade-off given that, as I said, most of the guys that I play with have other projects, and that can limit their availability. And for some of them, weekends are almost always out. So that's another reason we haven't played a ton or as much as I would have liked to. Well, I had a point, and it was going to be really good, and I lost it.
I like this guy. He's just like me.
It felt right off. But no, we haven't really played out of town all that much. And as far as picking up momentum, when I talk to other guys in bands, they'll say, well, you got to go hang out at these jam nights, and if you hang out till 1 a.m, eventually you'll meet enough people that you'll have more contacts for shows. And I'm sure they're right. I'm sure that works, but I like to sleep. I'm silly that way. I enjoy being healthy. And a lot of the guys that I've known or worked with that sort of commit to the thing of going out multiple times a week and staying until midnight or later, they just don't sleep. So I do some of that. More so, I try to focus on things. I guess I've tried to find sort of side door ways to draw attention to the band. The other thing in Nashville is that it's an extremely apathetic town as far as building up a following. There's always 6 dozen things going on every night of the week. Everyone's in a band, so it's about as interesting to most people as being an actor in LA. And that's another thing I recall when I started out. It's like, oh, I get it now. When you're college age, all your friends go out all the time, so it's a little easier to pull a crowd. Not as easy now as it used to be. So the kind of things I've been focusing on that I'm hoping will make the right kind of connections that draw attention back to the band, right, are more of the, I guess, pro level jams and showcases and things that happen around town. and those didn't exist when I was first starting. I'm really glad they do now. But we have one that I've done a lot. There's a show that happens every month called Loud Jams, and it's just kind of a local all-star, quote-unquote, jam night where, you have touring musicians and studio musicians in town, and it's an excellent way to show people what you can do and just get out in front of a room full of working musicians. And it seems like every time I do that, I make a few new friends, and actually quite a few of them I used on the record, and some of them have recommended me to other things. So I'm kind of hoping through that route, if that leads to more session work, let's say, or it leads to me singing with somebody on more live events or things like that on a pro level, that could bring attention back to the band, and then also, bring in some more income that I can use to promote the band.
So this album that you just put out, was it recorded in a studio down in Nashville, or was this a kind of a home? Because don't get me wrong if I said a home recording, because you could do home recordings now that sound, trust me, they're great.
It was done here in this room, pretty much all in the box on a laptop. I found over the years, tracking with live musicians, a lot of guys, obviously it comes down to picking the right people. When you're on a budget, you kind of have to go with what you can afford sometimes. And that brings with it, sometimes guys just want to give you the first thing they can think of, and, I'll be happy with it. And there's been more than one occasion in the past where I've, paid a studio musician to track something, and they didn't really ask any questions, and ultimately I just had to redo what they did, and I thought, boy, that was wasted money. So generally speaking, I try to do it, as much of it myself as possible. I usually, program the drums and play as much of the instruments as possible, and then the stuff that I can't do well, then I'll, bring in other people.
Gotcha. That's awesome. So, and two, like I said, your album was on Spotify. That's where I listened to it at. And then, so what's your plan on getting this out? I mean, because now there's no, the business has changed, as you know. So what is your plan of attack, and what is your thoughts on how you're going to get this thing out? I mean, through Spotify, but you sell them through your, I guess, a website, or during live performances. I mean, how do you go about that now in this day?
Well, convincing people that paying music for money is still even an option, that's pretty hard to do anymore, actually. I think it's odd how many people use SoundCloud as a measure of their success, because all you're doing is measuring how many copies you've given away. You're right that it's one thing to get views or listens or likes. Any of that to translate it to actual income is extremely hard. I would say I've spent, the last probably 6 or 7 weeks emailing as many blogs and websites as possible all over the world, because I've known of acts that really made it, broke through on a pretty large scale due to getting featured on the right blog, or these days, the right Spotify playlist. I haven't focused as much on that, except by way of some of the blogs and websites that I've contacted. And I also bought a radio campaign with a European company that I suppose has been going on for the last week or so. And I suppose the first album we put out is called There It Is, and they're both on CD Baby. That's who does our distribution. That was really the first proper album that I ever put out that I really called a Tall Dark Stranger album. And the band had been around for quite a while before that, but we had just sort of put together collections of demos and slapped a cover on it and sold it at shows. But to me, that's not the same as a cohesive album that sort of makes a statement for a time and place. So the first album we did, I had extremely high hopes of that an indie radio campaign would make a big difference. It made a difference in my bank account, I can tell you that much. But yeah, I paid a nice little chunk for an indie radio campaign, and now looking back on that, I'm not sure exactly what I thought would happen from that. But when it comes to terrestrial radio, even if tons of people heard it, you don't know who they are, you don't know when they heard it. I mean, there's not much follow up on that. I suppose at that time the plan was, if it catches fire in any particular market, then we'll go and do shows, stuff like that. Ultimately, that didn't pay off all that much. So I decided this time around just to focus more on online promotions, because at least with that you're a little better able to track where the listeners are and follow up. So that does seem like a cheaper and probably more effective way to do it. We'll find out.
Exactly. Bill? Hey, your mic's muted there, dude. He keeps me.
I got a cold, so I've been coughing. And
I
stuff,
know.
so.
Well, and you're being very professional. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah. You don't get the
I don't get the germs.
heavy breathing. Yeah. So Dee, where can people buy your stuff then? So where can they find you? Is there websites? Is there how do you get to you?
Well, we have talldarkstranger.net, and that's where we park all of the videos and pictures and this and that. As far as the album, if you want a CD, you can get that through CD Baby, and probably through Amazon as well. And as far as I know, they distribute it for download everywhere else. So whether you're an iTunes guy or whether you just prefer to listen on Spotify, you can do that. But yeah, I generally tell people CD Baby because I still like CDs and I'm really proud of the artwork on our CD. And so I'd prefer that people have that in their hands if they have the option. But I know that those who prefer CDs are kind of a dying breed. So you can download it.
We prefer vinyl. We need a vinyl.
Yeah,
I
looked into that. Yeah, it definitely. If we sell enough that I feel like I want to put some more money into it, I'll definitely think about that. It's in. I only recently learned from doing a KISS podcast. I only recently learned some stuff about vinyl mastering that I never knew before. The whole thing about the weaker songs being on track 5 and track 10 because of the grooves are different towards the middle of the disc, and I guess you lose some of the bass.
Yep.
And so artists in the vinyl era would put weaker songs towards the end of the side. Fascinating. So now I've noticed when they re-release, I think King's X just re-released some things on vinyl in the last few years, and now they're splitting things up onto 2 discs, so you don't have that problem. But yeah, sooner or later, I'm sure I'll do that. I'll have to get a little back on my investment for this album before I think about it. But yeah, I'll definitely do that down the road.
Well, people that listen to this podcast, you need to check out Tall Dark Stranger's new album, because, like I say, it is great. Like I said, I listened to it actually 4 or 5 times this weekend actually. Contra Mundum. I got that right again. There you go. Like I said, check it out on Spotify, or like you said, go on to CD Baby, Amazon, what have you, and check out Dee's stuff. If you're a fan of 70s, 80s kind of different stuff, or yacht rock, as I call it, and he may not like the term yacht rock, but that's just what I classify it as. But anyway, we had a good time with you on tonight. I appreciate you coming on. And like I said, if you're in Nashville and you can check these guys out live, you got any live shows coming up?
Not right now. I've been reaching out to some people, spending more of my time emailing
Gotcha.
websites and stuff. Still trying to get some coverage and some reviews for the album, but I have been reaching out to people. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a few things on the books.
Well, whenever you do, just give us a holler and we'll post it on our page also and help you out.
Great. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, Dee Allen, we sure appreciate you being on. Hang around here for a second, and Alan, you want to take us out of here?
Absolutely. Visit us on agesofrock.com. Check out all of our social media. Check us out on Stitcher Radio. Check out our rebroadcast on KGF Radio, KGFrocks.com on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Until next week, peace out, folks. Thanks for listening to the Ages of Rock podcast. If you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and most importantly, tell all your friends. Remember, you're never too old to rock. Until the next episode, peace out, folks.